What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we have got our Week 8 NFL game picks, outright versus the spread, along with our locks of the week. If you enjoy the content, hit that like button, subscribe. Also, check out the all-new website at adpfantasy.com, where you'll be able to see these weekly NFL game picks, also weekly fantasy football advice. Not only that, if you join the free newsletter, you will get early access to these game picks every single week for every single game. And you can also become a member and get personalized fantasy advice from yours truly. All the details in the description. But for now, let's get right into it. We kick things off on Thursday Night Football with the matchup between the Washington Redskins at the Minnesota Vikings. The Redskins 1-6 after a loss to the 49ers in a torrential downpour of a game where points were hard to come by, while the Minnesota Vikings 5-2 after a huge win over the division rival Detroit Lions as Kirk Cousins continued to stay hot. Dalvin Cook continues to look like one of the best running backs in the league. And on paper, this is a huge mismatch, as the spread would have you to believe, minus 15.5 in favor of the Vikings. But I'm here to tell you that I actually believe this game might be a little bit closer than the spread indicates. First of all, we've got the ultimate grudge match here. Case Keenum plays the Minnesota Vikings, Adrian Peterson as well, while Kirk Cousins faces his former team in the Washington Redskins. Not that that means all too much. The Vikings still have the better roster from top to bottom, offensively and defensively, even without Thielen suiting up in this game. But a couple things to consider. First and foremost, we've seen with Kirk Cousins that these hot streaks that he goes on, they don't last all season long. Both these quarterbacks kind of have a history of not playing all that great under the spotlight in these primetime games. I'm not going to take that to the bank or anything. I'm just trying to say that these two quarterbacks know these respective teams, and there could be something to that. There's a lot of pride on the line. I think this game won't actually hit that 15.5 point spread in favor of the Vikings. I think the Redskins keep it somewhat respectable in terms of the score. Probably at 10 points to 14 points, but I don't see it going more than 2 touchdowns. Don't get me wrong, I still like the Minnesota Vikings. They're the slam dunk pick here. Even if Kirk Cousins struggles, they've got the ultimate trump card in Dalvin Cook. Just give it to him. He'll run over players. He'll get into the end zone. And if the offense struggles, guess what? You've got another trump card in that Minnesota defense. So all signs point to the Vikings. Outright, don't overthink it. The Vikings at home on top of this should get this victory. However, on the spread, really high number at minus 15.5. I'm actually going to take the Redskins there. Next, we have got the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. The Battle of the Birds, the Seahawks 5-2, coming off a loss versus the Baltimore Ravens where they just couldn't get it going offensively and the defense couldn't stop Lamar Jackson, while the Atlanta Falcons 1-6. Yet another loss, this time to the LA Rams. Look, we predicted it, but we didn't think it would be that bad. On top of it, insult to injury as Matt Ryan hurt in that game, ankle injury. Will he play in this contest? Won't he? Now, per Dan Quinn, the expectation, even though right now it seems like a lofty one, is that Matt Ryan suits up. But he probably won't be 100%. This is a home game for the Falcons. Not that it really matters at this point in time, as the defense can't really defend anyone. And one of the MVP frontrunners in Russell Wilson should have a huge bounce-back performance. Held that entire Seattle offense from Chris Carson to Tyler Lockett to Metcalf to Russell Wilson should all have big games here. And look, if Matt Ryan somehow doesn't suit up, this automatically becomes one of the locks of the week. But right now, since we're operating under the assumption that Matt Ryan will play, you have to say that there's an outside chance the Falcons make it interesting here. Offensively, they can go ahead and put up points, but we've seen them struggle in that department, as evident by that Rams contest last week. That'll happen when, you've got Devonta Freeman that gets ejected. Matt Ryan just doesn't have a good day. Now, a big storyline for the Falcons here, they trade away Mohamed Sanu. So Calvin Ridley, the unquestioned wide receiver 2 in this offense, I actually think that'll be a good thing. He needed more snaps in this offense. He has all the talent in the world. Offensively, the Falcons can go ahead and contend with anyone. But again, with a bum ankle and with a lot of issues on that offensive line, the Falcons are going to struggle here. Uh, they might put up some points, but when it's all said and done, the Seattle offense will have an easier time versus this Atlanta defense. So give me the Seattle Seahawks to win what could potentially be a high-scoring game. I'll take them outright on the spread, plus 4.5 for Atlanta. Look, the way this Atlanta team has looked, even if Matt Ryan plays, I got to go with the Seattle Seahawks on the spread. I think they win, and they win by at least a touchdown. Next, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles 3-4 after a beatdown versus the Dallas Cowboys. No other way to put it. The offense couldn't get anything going. The defense couldn't stop Zeke. While the Buffalo Bills 5-1 got a little bit of a scare versus the Dolphins, but ultimately they took care of business like we knew they would. Now they've got a home game here versus the Eagles, and even though they're 5-1 on the spread, only minus 1.5 point favorites, which kind of tells you that this is one of the tougher opponents that the Bills have faced all season long, probably right after the New England Patriots. And even though the Eagles' record is 3-4, they're better than that record. And I think this will be a very close game. I think it could be a coin flip between who wins. The Bills right now, I have to tend to give them the slight edge here because of the matchups. I think defensively, they're going to have a good showing and limit the Eagles' offensive output, while Josh Allen offensively has improved as a passer from year one. And if there was ever a game for him to have kind of a coming out party through the air, it would be here versus this Philadelphia Eagles secondary. And also, let's not forget what he could do with his legs, even though the strength of that Philly defense is defending the run, despite what we saw versus Ezekiel Elliott last week. On the flip side, however, like we said, the Eagles are better than their record suggests. They can hang with teams. They can beat teams. Carson Wentz just didn't look all that good last week in that divisional clash. Maybe that had something to do with it. But I think this will be a closer, lower scoring game. I'll take the Bills at home with that defense outright. But on the spread, going to hedge our bets a little bit. Going to go Philly as it's pretty much a coin flip as the spread would suggest. Bills outright, Eagles on the spread. Moving on, we've got the LA Chargers at the Chicago Bears. Both these teams extremely disappointing, coming off of losses. The Chargers, though, heartbreaking in their contest versus the Tennessee Titans, where they thought they had that game won twice, but ultimately it ends in a loss as Melvin Gordon fumbles it away on the goal line. While the Chicago Bears 3-3 after they just got absolutely dominated by the New Orleans Saints and Teddy Bridgewater. Don't look at that final score. It wasn't nearly that close. There was a lot of garbage time production there. And right now, as far as I'm concerned, the Bears have the worst quarterback in the NFL in Mitch Trubisky. If the Bears were wise, they'd move on from him after this year, but that's easier said than done. But that's a story for another time. What you need to know here is that this Bears offense has struggled tremendously, and even though they have a chance to improve here versus a Chargers defense that has underwhelmed, Mitch Trubisky is the weak link in this offense. Unless the defensive matchups are an absolute cakewalk, he doesn't look like a starting caliber NFL quarterback. He misses guys consistently. I think there's going to be a big focus here on the run game after the Bears only rushed it 7 times last week. That is ludicrous. So I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy decides to ride David Montgomery into the ground. But guess what? The Chargers on their side of the football offensively, they've got more weapons. They've got the better quarterback. Now, albeit they've got a struggling offensive line that's going to have its hands absolutely full with this Bears defense. But the Bears defense that once was the most feared unit in the NFL, now has to pretty much play perfectly in order for them to make up for all the deficiencies of this offense. And I think in the long run, in this lower scoring game, Phillip Rivers will go ahead and have a little bit more success than Mitchell Trubisky and put his offense in more opportunities to succeed. So I see the Chargers winning this game. Whether it's with Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, or Austin Eckler, they have the better offense. They have a competent quarterback. And defensively, those guys should be able to get after a Chicago Bears O-line that has struggled immensely as well. I see the Chargers getting this victory here. I think it'll be close. The Bears right now -4.5-point favorites. I think that's crazy. I'm taking the Chargers outright, and especially on the spread. Next, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals at the LA Rams. The Bengals 0-7, losing yet again. The same story here week in and week out. The defense can't stop anyone. The offensive line can't give enough time to Andy Dalton, can't open up enough holes for Joe Mixon. While the LA Rams now above 500, 4-3 after beating the Atlanta Falcons, where the defense dominated. And guess what? It likely will here yet again. This is one of the slam dunk contests of the week. The Rams at home. This offense should feast. Jared Goff, Robert Woods, Brendan Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and Todd Gurley should all have very successful days. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams start to bench some of their guys late in the fourth quarter, especially a guy like Todd Gurley that they're trying to preserve for later on in the season. We could probably potentially see a lot of Darrell Henderson here. That wouldn't shock me. But the thing I'm trying to say is the Rams are the easy pick. I think Aaron Donald is absolutely going to destroy that offensive line and Andy Dalton. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to shut down the wide receiver options for the Bengals. And it's going to ultimately lead to an 0-8 record for the Bengals outright. I'm taking the Rams. The spread pretty high, -12.5. But I have a confidence that the Rams win by at least 2 touchdowns, so give me them on the spread as well. Continuing on, we have got the Denver Broncos at the Indianapolis Colts. The Broncos 2-5 after losing to the Patrick Mahomes-less Kansas City Chiefs last Thursday night, while the Indianapolis Colts 4-2, taking down the divisional rival Houston Texans. Huge win for them. And now this home game versus the Broncos on paper should be a slam dunk win for the Colts. Jacoby Brissett looked great last week. I do think here versus the Denver Broncos defense, he could struggle potentially a little bit. Now, I will say the Colts have had the tendency to be a little up and down as far as performances this season. But look, you will expect that when you have Jacoby Brissett under center from time to time. I think he's still a good game manager, and for the most part, he will keep the Colts in the majority of their games. That's why I think that this game will be a close one. For the Broncos, the big storyline here is that they're going to be without Emmanuel Sanders as they trade him away to the San Francisco 49ers. Now it's going to be the Courtland Sutton show pretty much every single week. Offensively, the Broncos leave a lot to be desired. You know, Courtland Sutton, Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman from time to time, and Joe Flacco is the one that is operating this ship. So that leaves a lot to be desired. Let's just say it that way. The quarterback position for the Broncos has been one that hasn't been figured out in a while. Defensively, I think this is what will keep them in the game. I think this will be a lower scoring game, kind of how I alluded to it before. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts have a little bit of an underwhelming performance here. Don't get me wrong, they're still the better roster offensively. Defensively, you could make the case that this will be a wash. But I like the Colts to win outright. However, on the spread, -6.5, pretty much a touchdown margin of victory. I'm actually going to take the Denver Broncos there, as I think they keep it a little bit closer here, and it's probably between a 4 to 5 point margin of victory for the Colts. Next up, we've got the New York Giants at the Detroit Lions. Here's the Giants 2-5, coming off a loss in the battle of the rookie quarterbacks in Kyler Murray versus Daniel Jones, where Jones, couple of turnovers, the Giants defense didn't play all that well, and ultimately that leads to a loss like we predicted, while the Lions, tough battle at 2-3-1, but ultimately lose to the Vikings. And maybe more importantly, they're going to be without Kerryon Johnson for the remainder of the season. So now it'll be the duo of Ty Johnson and McKissick going forward at the running back position. We will see how that will fare for the remainder of the season. But let's not make any mistakes about it. This offense, this year at least, has been about Matthew Stafford and the success they have had through the air. Last week, it was Marvin Jones who had the game of his life. Now, this week, I expect Kenny Golladay to bounce back and to have a lot of success versus this Giants defense. But who knows? Maybe it'll be one of those aforementioned running backs, as the Giants defense was absolutely gutted by Chase Edmonds. No David Johnson, no problem there. The Giants still couldn't stop anyone. And I think at home, the Lions finally get a nice victory here. I like them outright. On the spread, -6.5 in favor of the Lions. I think they can win by a touchdown, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants keep it a little bit closer. I'm tentatively going to pick the Lions on the spread, but Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, another game to get a little bit healthier. I think they will be more involved in this offense. Sterling Shepard still not expected to suit up for this contest. That's still, a big piece missing for Daniel Jones. But ultimately, this Giants defense just missing too many playmakers and give up too many yards. I think the Detroit Lions will go ahead and win, both on the spread and outright. Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay Bucks at the Tennessee Titans. The Bucks 2-4 coming off the bye week, while the Titans 3-4 victorious. Maybe got a little bit lucky versus the LA Chargers last week, but give them credit. That defense made goal line stop after goal line stop and ultimately forces a fumble on Melvin Gordon to preserve the victory. As far as picking this game, I'll be honest with you guys, it's one that I'm staying away from. I could see either one of these teams winning. I think whatever happens, it'll probably be a lower scoring affair. The Titans defense can go ahead and, be a good unit, and they could take advantage of a turnover-prone Jameis Winston, who last time when he took the field had about 6 turnovers, I believe. That's absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it'll be as bad this week. Yet the crazy thing is the Bucks were still kind of in that game versus the Panthers. What I'm trying to say is this offense has a lot of offensive firepower between Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Jameis Winston airing it out. Now, O.J. Howard might not play here, so it could be the Cameron Brate show. While defensively, the Bucks, even though they can be beat in the secondary, versus the rush, they're one of the best in the NFL. So it could be a long day for Derrick Henry, but the thing to continue to track here is Ryan Tannehill under center for the Titans, as last week he looked like a bit of a infusing presence for this offense. They pretty much looked better as a unit entirely compared to when Marcus Mariota was under center, but we'll see how long that lasts. As we've seen before, Tannehill, another one of these quarterbacks that isn't consistent for an entire season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he struggles a little bit here. Now, I'm going to give the edge here to the offense that I think is a bit better, and to the offense that I think will have a bounce-back performance, especially from their quarterback. That is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Titans favored on the spread, -2.5. So you could see bettors think it'll be a close game. Right now, I don't feel 100% confident in this game. Like I said, I would probably avoid it if I'm trying to pick a game this week, but I'm going with the Bucks outright, and since I like them there, I'm also taking them on the spread. Next, we've got the Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. The Cardinals 3-1. Nice victory over the New York Giants. No David Johnson, no problem, as Chase Edmonds ran it down their throats, while the New Orleans Saints 6-1. Another dominant victory where they embarrassed the Chicago Bears with great efforts from Latavius Murray, Teddy Bridgewater, Michael Thomas, and that defense. And that's pretty much been the formula for them ever since Drew Brees went out. And speaking of Drew Brees, this is going to be one of the storylines because reports are that he could potentially suit up. Now, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, front office, I'm saying, man, I don't want to risk it. There's no reason to start Drew Brees in a game. Even if he misses, the Saints should easily win. Give him an extra week with the bye week following to get right. Same with Alvin Kamara, even though he probably has a higher chance of playing here. I think Latavius Murray showed that he's more than capable, even with him being a backup, to get the job done. And he'll have every opportunity versus the Arizona Cardinals defense because Teddy Bridgewater, again, with Patrick Peterson back in the secondary for the Arizona Cardinals, I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a smart backup quarterback, take what the defense gives him and hand it off to Latavius Murray, rely on the defense, and yeah, that should get them the victory. It's as simple as that. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints at home. Tough environment. I think they ground the success of the Arizona Cardinals offense that we've seen these last couple of weeks, and especially Kyler Murray. But I still think the Cardinals have some good performances ahead of them. Just this environment in New Orleans versus this defense. I don't see the Cardinals coming out on top here. The spread -9.5. If one of those superstars with Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara does suit up, I could see the Saints covering no problem. I could see the spread rising. So right now, I'm going to take the Saints outright. And with maybe the spread set to rise, I like it for the Saints. I'm going to say they cover there as well. Next, we've got the New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jets 1-5 after getting absolutely just destroyed by the New England Patriots. So much for that nice victory over the Dallas Cowboys the week before. The Jaguars 3-4, beating the Cincinnati Bengals. And look, more than likely they'll win this game here again. Gardner Minshew, he's got some nice weapons offensively. I think both these offenses actually pretty comparable. Young quarterbacks with strong running backs behind them, and then some nice weapons as pass catchers. Neither offense is really gonna put up a bunch of points on you. Neither offense is incredibly all that explosive, and both quarterbacks are prone to mistakes. So offensively, I think we could see a wash here, kind of low scoring game. The Jaguars, when they've been winning, haven't been blowing out teams. Now the Jaguars are favored on the spread, -5.5. And I'd have to agree with that. I like the Jaguars here to win. However, I'm not necessarily sure on the spread because, like I said, I think these teams somewhat comparable. I know a lot of people freaking out after the performance from Darnold and the Jets last week versus the Patriots, but that was one of the best defenses in the NFL. Divisional rivals, those two teams know each other very well, so I wouldn't freak out too much. I think the Jets are going to have a bounce back performance here. But again, I still think they come up short. They've got issues on that offensive line, and the Jaguars defense can still go ahead and make plays. I think they're going to take advantage of some of those mismatches in the trenches. So ultimately, I like them to win this game, but I think it'll be closer. I think it'll be lower scoring. I'll take the Jaguars outright, but on the spread, -5.5, I'm actually going to take the Jets there. Moving on, we've got the Carolina Panthers at the San Francisco 49ers in what I believe could potentially be one of the more intriguing games this week. The Panthers 4-2 coming off the bye week, while the 49ers, they are still undefeated, 6-0 after beating the Redskins in that torrential downpour where the defense continues to dominate. As far as this matchup, I actually think these two teams are really similar. If you break it down offensively, they're both led by their rushing attack for different reasons. For the Panthers, it's because Kyle Allen is under center and they have to rely on Christian McCaffrey, who admittedly is better than the running backs in San Francisco. He's one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. Also a tremendous pass catcher. For the 49ers, though, the combo of Breida and Coleman continues to get it done. As far as wide receivers and tight ends are concerned, again, I think similar here, not too many names at the wide receiver position that are going to be superstars, even though, the addition of Emmanuel Sanders for the 49ers does help. He's expected to play, so look out for that. But to me, it's George Kittle and Greg Olsen that I think are the best out of the wide receiver and tight ends available as far as pass catchers are concerned. Now, the problem is Kyle Allen versus Jimmy Garoppolo. I got to give the edge to Jimmy Garoppolo here because he's the more seasoned vet. And even though the 49ers, again, haven't really faced any elite defenses, you could say the same for Kyle Allen while he's been under center. That's why this is going to be a huge game for him And for all those talks about Cam Newton and Kyle Allen, the quarterback controversy, up until this point, I really don't buy into it, but I will say, if Kyle Allen can win this game, then watch out. A lot of steam, and maybe deservedly so, after this game. Again, only if the Panthers win, we'll go into that quarterback debate. But I just don't see it happening. I think the 49ers offensively, they've got the better quarterback. And defensively, again, both these units similar. They've got good defensive playmakers, especially up front. I think they're going to go ahead and have a big part to play in this contest. Right now, the way that I see it, I think the 49ers win either in a very close game, something along the lines of 13-10, or they win in a blowout where the defense absolutely picks apart Kyle Allen. And either way, 49ers, I like them outright on the spread, -5.5. I think that's a little bit highish. They haven't really blown out anyone unless it's been a absolutely horrible team. And out of the two scenarios that I painted, I think it'll be more likely to be a closer, lower scoring game. So I'm actually going to go ahead and take the Panthers on the spread. Next, we've got the Cleveland Browns at the New England Patriots. The Browns 2-4 coming off the bye week. And boy, what a reward getting to face the undefeated New England Patriots first, who are 7-0, absolutely crushed the New York Jets last week. And at home here versus a Browns offense in which Baker Mayfield has underperformed, where the offensive line is an issue. It could be another dominant performance for the Patriots and another just problematic game for the Cleveland Browns. The issue here is, even though the Browns have the playmakers, the Patriots historically with Bill Belichick take away your top superstar. Now, Gilmore, I think he's going to get matched up versus Odell Beckham, and he'll be able to shut him down. But I think the focus here will actually be on Nick Chubb, who, when he has success, that's when the Browns are at their best. The problem is this Patriots defense is so good from top to bottom. I think they can go ahead and shut down every single playmaker on this Browns offense. I think the pressure is going to get to Baker Mayfield, which in turn will force him to make mistakes, which in turn will give the Patriots more offensive opportunities, which in turn will go ahead and run up the score, which will eliminate the rushing attack, which will force Baker Mayfield to make more mistakes. So I just don't see the Browns coming out of this game with a victory. Now for the Patriots, maybe the big news here, Josh Gordon on IR, but they get Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons in exchange for a second-round pick. It'll be interesting to see how he gels with this offense. But either way, I think the Patriots, from top to bottom, are the better team here. I think it's an easy pick to take them outright. No questions about it. On the spread is where it's interesting because obviously it's a high number, -12.5. How confident are you in the Patriots covering that number? Until I see them be in a close contest, obviously the one we saw so far, it's only been a single one. It was versus the Bills, but the Bills have a great defense. I don't see the Patriots succumbing to, not covering one of these spreads. And Baker Mayfield has really struggled at the quarterback position. I got to see, even with this big number, the Patriots cover the spread yet again. I'm not as confident as I was in taking him in this outright. I will say that. But again, until I see a team challenge them, which I haven't really so far this season, and I definitely don't think the Browns will be the ones to do it, I'm going with the Patriots, both on the spread and outright. Moving on, we've got the Oakland Raiders at the Houston Texans. The Raiders 3-3 after a loss to the Green Bay Packers, where they got absolutely torched by classic Aaron Rodgers, while the Houston Texans 4-3, big loss versus the Indianapolis Colts. That's going to be important later on when they vie for that division title. But for now, look, they've got a bounce back performance here. They've got a lot of firepower offensively. I think they can go ahead and have, again, success versus this Oakland defense, which we have seen can be beat. However, I don't necessarily expect the Raiders to fall flat offensively here. But again, I think the Houston Texans are the better team all around. Tyrell Williams could potentially play in this game for the Raiders. That is a nice boost for them. It's pretty much him and Waller as far as the targets for the Raiders. But I think Deshaun Watson, with his mobility, with DeAndre Hopkins kind of getting back into a groove, and even without Will Fuller, reinsert Kenny Stills in there. I think they're pretty similar as far as what they can do wide receiver wise. I think the Houston Texans get this victory here. Defensively, they'll make one or two stops that prove to be the clinchers. I'm going to go ahead and take the Houston Texans at home to get this victory. The spread -6.5, maybe a little bit high, but I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say the Texans can go ahead and cover from a big bounce back game from Deshaun Watson and those pass catchers, whether it's Kenny Stills or DeAndre Hopkins. Getting to Sunday Night Football, we have got the Green Bay Packers at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Packers 6-1 after absolutely being on fire offensively. No Devontae Adams, no problem last week versus the Raiders. While the Kansas City Chiefs 5-2, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt early in that game. Dislocated kneecap, they still get the victory. Supposedly best case scenario for that injury for Mahomes. Not going to miss that much time. And all those projections of maybe 3-4 weeks missed, well, they've been turned on their head, as some people think that Mahomes could potentially play in this contest, which is absolutely ludicrous to me. That would be absolutely amazing. Now, I think probably the Chiefs want to be a little bit safer and smarter with Patrick Mahomes. No one's really looking all that impressive in their division. And even if they lose here, I think it's smarter to go ahead and preserve Mahomes, give him an extra week of rest. But who knows? We'll see what happens. Right now, I'm operating under the assumption that Matt Moore plays. And if that's the case, even though there's going to be offensive weapons around him, I don't think they'll be able to contend with Aaron Rodgers, even if he is without Devontae Adams yet again, who is a game-time decision supposedly. But with the way his practices this week have gone, which they haven't existed, I'd probably venture a guess and say he doesn't play again. But with this Kansas City Chiefs defense, I don't really think it'll matter. I think MVS, Geronimo Allison, more importantly Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams will have very productive days. We've seen it before. I think we'll see it here again. Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, he makes the pass catchers around him all deadly, really no matter how elite they are. So I like the Packers to go ahead and get this victory outright. On the spread, it's +4.5 for the Chiefs. If Matt Moore plays and Mahomes doesn't, pretty confident the Packers cover it on the spread. However, it's a different story if Mahomes suits up. I'd go ahead and stay away from this game on the spread if Mahomes does play. So definitely track his status as the week goes ahead. And finally, on Monday night, we have got the Miami Dolphins at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh boy, what a matchup, said no one. As the Dolphins 0-6 lose to the Bills last week. But hey, Ryan Fitzpatrick under center, I think we can clearly see is the better option offensively. The Pittsburgh Steelers 2-4, no Big Ben. This offense isn't the same. It's clear to see Mason Rudolph doesn't really have it as far as I think anybody can tell right now. But hey, guess what? He might finally have a good game as a starting quarterback versus this Miami Dolphins defense. But again, I don't think the Steelers are going to force him to do so, as they've got the perfect formula to win this game. Hand the ball off to James Conner. Go ahead, play good defense, run a couple of trick plays with the running backs, throw screen passes to the running backs. That's pretty much their game plan offensively since Big Ben has left via injury. And it should work perfectly versus this Miami Dolphins defense. But I will say, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick can go ahead and make the Dolphins a little bit more competitive here, give them a little bit of Fitz magic powers, some connection with Devontae Parker, with Walton. We'll see. But again, this Steelers offense doesn't really scare me. The only reason that I think the Steelers will win this game, they're home, but it's the defense and the running backs. I'll take them outright. Let me be clear on that. But the spread, minus 14.5, I think that's incredibly high. Now, I know a lot of people probably go back to the Bengals game and what the Steelers did there. I understand that. But I actually think the Dolphins can go ahead and make it a little bit closer here. I know it sounds crazy. This offensive line isn't as horrible as that of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's another big factor. So I'm going to take the Steelers outright, but on the spread, might sound crazy. I'm taking the Dolphins. So with that, we finish up our pick'ems. Now getting to our locks of the week. There's quite a few here, folks. Let's start with the Minnesota Vikings versus the Washington Redskins. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but the Vikings, the better roster from top to bottom. Give me them to win this game behind a good defensive performance and dominance from Dalvin Cook. Next, Seattle at the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, not 100%. The Falcons defensively can't stop anyone. I think the Seahawks bounce back here and get the victory. Next, the LA Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is extremely simple. Aaron Donald will absolutely destroy what's left of that Cincinnati offensive line. I like the Rams defensively, offensively. They win this game. Next, Arizona at the New Orleans Saints. Maybe a little bit out of all these locks, the riskiest one. But I still think with Teddy Bridgewater, even if it's not Drew Brees in that defense, and Michael Thomas, potentially Alvin Kamara, they'll take care of business versus the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is really going to struggle here on the road versus the Saints defense. Next, New England Patriots versus the Cleveland Browns. The Patriots might not cover on the spread. They might not win by 30, but they will win. This Patriots defense will shut down Baker Mayfield, force several turnovers, and the Patriots at home win this contest. Next, Green Bay at the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, this one is going to go ahead and hinge on the status of Patrick Mahomes. But if he doesn't play, I think this is an easy lock. Aaron Rodgers over Matt Moore every single day. And then finally, the Miami Dolphins at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I said, I think it's going to be closer than some people expect. But the Pittsburgh Steelers outright should get this victory behind James Conner and a great defensive performance. With that, we finish up our locks of the week and wrap up in general. And as always, let me hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree? Have any other questions? Let me hear them as well. And if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe. And again, a reminder, go ahead, check out the website at adpfantasy.com. Check out all the content there. Join the newsletter, become a member. All the details in the description. But in the meantime, I'll see you guys in future videos.